Hi, I'm Robby Peters, co-founder of PeopleTech.
Hi, my name is Sharifan. I'm part of PeopleTech Partners, and I lead the People Operations team at Slack Technology.
Awesome. Well, thanks for agreeing to sit down and hang out with me here, Dawn.
It's rough, Robby, but somehow we persevere.
Exactly. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, since early HR 2.0 days, everything, right? What excited you when we started talking about PeopleTech? Like, what drew you to PeopleTech specifically?
Well, I think one of the things I've always enjoyed about my conversations with you, and even HR 2.0 days, is like, what is that next generation of HR? And I think, having done this for 16 years, closer to 20 sometimes, it's really about what is that next generation, and we've been talking about it for so long. And I felt like the conversations were right at the forefront. And then combine that with like this explosion of technology in the people space, and the type of work we do, why wouldn't you want to be on the forefront of that?
Totally.
And then when you have done this work for a few years, it's a really cool way to take that expertise and really say like, oh my gosh, now I know enough that I can be helpful and supportive and interesting, and not just supporting a business, but also potentially becoming an advisor, becoming a place where I can influence the tools that they get to at my desk, versus like getting a V1 and then having to work with the product team, get on a roadmap and all of that.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean, you've always been, an amazing supporter, obviously believing in the mission, but have been one that's enjoyed advising companies. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what your experience is when you advise a company and the different things that you do?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that's really important to me is just really getting clear on who you're advising and what the ask is. And so I'm a firm believer in like just getting clear on expectations out the gate, so that everything else goes smoothly down the line. I think the other is just spending a minute to get to know each other as people. And making it safe to say like, hey, I'm going to try something here. If it doesn't work, like let's be clear on that. And then I think the other part, because I didn't know really what to ask or what to do, and it was like, what's the number of hours we're committing to? What type of work are you asking from me? What are your turnaround times? Because I have a day job.
Sure.
I have a busy day job. And so getting really clear on that. And then I think spending the work on the front, just like anything, spending the work on the front part unlocks a lot more down the line.
Absolutely, Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's always been, the biggest thing is entering in with what's both sides going to feel good about this, because you're obviously both going in and you want to do something together, and it's like really putting the time and effort to map that out in the beginning is obviously huge. So shifting gears a little bit outside of PeopleTech, talk a little bit about maybe, what are some of the biggest things that are on your HR roadmap for Slack this year? Like, what are some of the biggest projects you're working on?
Yeah, so I feel like we just have launched so many things, but there's so many more things to do, right? You can barely catch your breath.
Totally.
So we just relaunched our feedback program with Lattice, actually.
Cool.
Who is part of the Slack Fund.
And,
they are,
right?
So
that's
they're
awesome.
a deep Slack partner of ours.
Yeah, it's great.
So we just launched with Lattice. We just redid, and I feel like every HR person I've ever talking to is, what are you working on? Oh, feedback, performance management, everything.
Everything.
So if that's 18 to 24 months, I'll be happy. So we just did that. We just redid our calibration process and kind of talent identification process. And we are just launching manager expectations and training, right? So all of that, and globally. So we've done that. So once we do that, then
not big projects.
No big projects. No time to catch your breath. Then I think the other things we're thinking about is, when you're part of a hypergrowth company, that means you've hired people in tranches, which means people vest and potentially attrit in tranches. So making sure that we are re-recruiting our talent every single day. Making sure that people can understand that maybe you joined the company when we were 50 people, and there's still opportunity for you. That there's maybe you're not it has the piece of the pie this big, maybe it's this, but it's deeper now, and what that looks for. So people that can have a path, making sure that people know that there is a future and a way to kind of grow and stay.
How do you communicate that to individuals? Like, what's the process of telling the 50th employer? Like, how have you built that out?
So I think there's two things. I mean, I think one thing I always try to be is real, and I think like not your bullshit HR person.
Totally.
Which is, one is like, it's okay if you are a better fit for a 50-person company, and that might be okay. And thank you so much for everything that you've done to get us here. And it's time to go, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the other piece is like, why don't you stay and see what that next gen is? You could always go back to this, but wouldn't you want to have both sides of the coin?
Totally.
And in the process, it's okay to grieve what the company was as you embrace what it's going to be. And I think it's not an either or situation. It's kind of like, not to be too like kumbaya philosophical,
yeah.
but it's like it's about the journey.
Totally.
And so it's like that's what happened. It's like, okay, maybe we're not here anymore, but let's see what this new step is going to be.
And how do you recommit? How do you build in your piece of it? And if it's
That's
not
right.
for you, that's okay, right? And constantly, especially at the type of scale and growth. I mean, you're recreating the company often, right? And
We've been 5 different companies in the 4 years that I've been there, honestly. Yeah.
What employee were you when you started?
We don't track employee numbers.
Got it, okay.
But I was somewhere between 150 and 180.
Okay.
I don't remember.
That's awesome. Depending on what day of the week you started.
That's right.
Much, right.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about, kind of location-wise for Slack. It seems like you are, obviously I'm always talking to you and you're like, I'm in Australia today or here tomorrow. What's the location?
I have a very glamorous life, Robby.
Yes.
And anyone that does a lot of business travel knows how glamorous that is.
Oh yeah.
We have 12 offices. When I
Okay.
joined, we had 2.
Okay.
So it's been in that 3.5, 2 years, we've added. We do quick, fast math. What is that? 9 offices, right? Oh, my husband would be so disappointed in me.
12, 2, 10,
math teacher,
but,
he would be
okay.
so disappointed.
Yeah.
So we've added 9 offices.
Yeah.
Many of them in different countries,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
only 2 of them are in the same country.
Okay.
So every time you enter the operational lift of that, the intention that you try to build that office around and what is going to be the anchor and what that looks like.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what is I mean, you've now done it 9, 10, who knows times, but
Math is hard. Yep.
What is your biggest recommendation when opening a new office for somebody that's watching this and thinking about maybe opening their first new office they've ever done?
Yeah. So first of all, I just realized I reiterated a stereotype of HR people that they're bad at math, so I'm bad at data. So I want to just take that way back.
There you go.
But I think when you're opening a new office, I think things to think about is what is the purpose of that office first, right? And I think we heard a little bit from some of the folks that were here that it is very common, and is very common in my career, that people open offices because they know Susie in that office, or the founder is from blah 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 city.
Totally.
And that becomes a very hard place to then continue to build a strategy around.
Yeah.
So definitely using data to open the office. For us,
awesome.
when we think about diversity, that's been a consideration when we open offices. So can we build the type of workforce and the hopefully different and inclusive workforce that we want to in the cities that we're targeting. And so I think the other thing is then I would say, who's going to be your anchor to that office? Do you need it to be a senior leader? Could it be maybe one step down where you allow people to career grow and like stretch opportunity? Being really clear with employees that the size of the office, the intention of the space, so people don't wonder
going
like,
in,
like, oh, we're stuck at 50 people.
Yeah.
Like 50 people is an awesome size.
Totally.
I miss when we were 50 people.
Totally.
And that's a really cool thing for all of these other reasons. So again, just getting clear on expectation.
It seems like you all have a very good culture of transparency at Slack to be able to really outline things because we're all making decisions for our lives and knowing what we have, right? So
I think we do our best, and we certainly don't succeed every single day, every single moment. But I think that as an HR person, it's really pushed me in terms of like my comfort level around transparency. And I think a lot of us, what we talk about, especially people tech, is like, what's the future of work? And I know it is more transparent, and I know it is more accountable, and I know, and so I think being in these situations and being uncomfortable, that's where the growth happens. And I'm internally grateful for that.
That's awesome. So speaking a little bit more back on the people tech side now, what are some of the technologies that you've been excited by and are enabling some of this growth that you're talking about, and how are you utilizing it?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple specifically that I get really excited about. One is Shift. I think what they're doing with the veteran population and how they're thinking about it is super, super cool. So I love them. I think Bravely is really exciting. And talk about like being pushed out of your comfort zone from an HR person. What does that mean if you give those conversations away or start them in a different place? And then having to question what your value prop is as an HR person sometimes. But I think it's a really, really fascinating model, and I've heard a lot of value from folks who are using it. And of course, I'm interested in Terminal. Full transparency, I'm their advisor. But also, like when you think about people moving out of the Bay Area, the difficulty in retaining and keeping engineering talent and what that looks like, I think they're on the tip of something really interesting as well.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit, one common theme, again, has been coming up as we talked about, like moving offices, but how do you build the communication strategy with this more distributed team that you're building? Like, what are some of the tips and tricks that you might have for someone, again, that's building that out?
Yeah, so I'd say the first I don't know if it's a trick, but is a tip to have a partner. There's someone whose full-time dedicated job is to the communications of our company.
Okay, yeah.
And quite frankly, we started that a bit early at Slack because even though Slack is a communication platform, it can be really noisy sometimes, and there's a lot of information there, and how do we want to work that? And I think the thing that's been really cool is in that translates to our customers and our clients, where we can tell them, oh, we learned this thing, now you can learn this thing.
Totally.
So one is to have somebody whose time is focused and dedicated to it. The second thing is, no matter how clear you think that you are, you need to say it again. So the rules of 3. Say it 3 times. And then I think the other thing is, it's okay if people, and we do this in Slack all the time, you say something, someone disagrees, okay, and then we have a conversation about it. That also doesn't mean we get stuck in a rat hole. We have a lot of business that we need to do. But we think the real value is not in agreement, but in the conversation.
In the conversation. That's fantastic. Any other big trends that you see coming up that are interesting you in HR, or where areas where you're like, I wish there was some technology here, or more people were doing more in this area? What excites you?
So I think this is a bit passe, but I think AI is super interesting, and where the tension is between the human and the person. And I feel like there's a cultural shift moving away from technology and away from connectivity in some ways, in terms of like people trying to simplify and get offline. So I think having those two things, holding in person. I personally think the future of HR work is around coaching. And so I think there's some really interesting tech around that. And the skill set I try to develop for my team is a coach-first mentality. And I think, continued trend is globalization, right? I think there's no longer San Francisco and New York as the hubs of all of those places. I think less people, we're seeing it in the data, less people are immigrating to the US right now. More people are leaving San Francisco than entered in the last 2 years. Like the globalization flattening where technology has democratized where people can live is totally interesting.
That's awesome.
So I guess remote teams.
No, that's really, really cool. Also, you're doing some cool stuff. I'd love to talk a little bit about, we had that awesome meeting around 70 million jobs, right? And some of the work that you've done with the formerly incarcerated. And we're planning to do an event, and I know I'm throwing these things, but we've talked about it, coming up probably in Q2. Talk a little bit about maybe what if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that program that you did with the formerly incarcerated at Slack.
Sure. So first of all, I want to give massive credit to other folks that have done most of the work. I just like to take credit for their work, so that's fine. The program is called The Next Chapter, and we are currently focusing on an organization called The Last Mile. And what that is folks that are formerly incarcerated in San Quentin that have gone through a coding boot camp, if you will. When they come out, we have apprentice positions. And we've had 3. And what we do is before they start the apprentice position, we send them to a hacking boot camp. They increase their skills because can you imagine like trying to learn how to code with no internet, with no technology, right? And so they get in, and then they come and they work for us for a year. There's no guarantee that there's a job at the end, but the idea, we hope that there will be. But the idea is that now they have some additional tech skills, they have a brand on their resume, they're learning a different type of skill so that they can take it to another company. And our mission for this team right now is to spread it to other companies. So it's not just us that are doing it. And there's been really challenges. When they came and told me they wanted to do this, I said, absolutely not. I can't imagine. I had a place of privilege, I had a place of ignorance where I didn't really know what that meant. And I thought, formerly incarcerated San Quentin, like San Quentin's the scary prison. Like I don't know like what that means or what that looks like. And so part of it was educating myself, humbling myself, and then really pushing my comfort zone. So we started also from a place of, okay, well, no violent criminals. Well, going to San Quentin, you're probably violent. So then how do you work through what are the criteria for that and how we ended up in the place that we do. And there's, if you go to our website, we have white papers to help other companies around this and some thought process on it. So it's really, really probably one of the most proud things that I've done in my career and something I would have never thought I would have had the opportunity to participate in.
Absolutely. And an initiative, obviously, at People Tech we're really, really excited about and hopefully opening this up to more and more folks to just understand. And like you said, I think most of us we're coming from a place of privilege, of ununderstanding, and like really starting that conversation and then giving the roadmap for people to actually do something about it, right? And the impact that can have, I think, is huge, obviously. So
I really appreciate the People Tech community because it is a series and group of like-minded people where we're having conversation. And I think sometimes we forget we're at the tip of the arrow until we go to maybe another conference and you're looking at the agenda and you're like, oh, we did this 3 years ago. And so the opportunity to be at the tip of the arrow is great. Grateful for that, but also to be with people that are thinking about that and doing things that haven't been done and built before is really, really cool. It's a nice group of people.
Yeah.